mind kind to your body and soul? Are you good to yourself? Maybe? We're going to be talking about this today as we continue with our Right Questions book. And my talk is Love Me Tender. And now we know Elvis was probably thinking of something else, but this is about self-love. This is about self-love. Love me tender, right? To love ourselves. Debbie asked the right question this week that we're looking at is this an act of self-love or is it an act of fear? To ask ourselves that question. Is it an act of self-love or an act of fear? Now, we hear a lot about the importance of self-love. I talk about it here on Sundays. We had a beautiful workshop last year by Joanne Cook, who talked a lot about what self-love is all about and how to do it. And there's 2,500,000,000 resources on Google about self-love. It sounds like it's kind of important. But why do we think it's so important? Why did Debbie include something about self-love as one of her 10 right questions? What is it? How we love ourselves influences how we live, how we pick a mate, how we show up in our work and our career, how we deal with problems in our lives, how it affects our general well-being. So it sounds pretty important and something that we should understand what this is. Let's start by looking at how we might not be loving of ourselves. How's your self-talk? How's your self-talk? Is it kind and loving? Or is it critical, sometimes even cruel? You beat yourself up when you make a mistake, large or small? Or do you cut yourself some slack and have some compassion for yourself? Learn from the mistake and move forward and move on. This is a bad habit, isn't it? Cleaning this up is really important, particularly with those of us in science of mind who know that our thoughts are involved in the creative process of our life, right? So when we're being critical of ourselves and beating ourselves up, what's the universe saying? Yes, we'll give you some more to beat yourself up about because you seem to enjoy that, right? Yeah. It's not that the universe is being mean, right? It's not that the law is mean and vindictive or anything like that. It just simply says, yep, yeah, yeah. So those loving thoughts help us to create a more loving environment for ourselves. How's your calendar? How's your schedule? Yeah. Many of us overbook ourselves, don't we? And we do too much, we take on too much, we give away so much of ourselves that we feel depleted. Anybody ever felt depleted at the end of the day? Nothing left? Yeah. Over scheduling ourselves, saying yes to too many things. We look closely at that, we can see some of the underlying things that might motivate that. Debbie also encourages us to look at our reverence for the should. That's her languaging. Reverence for the should. I should want this salad, but I want this piece of pie. I should want to be successful in a business career, but I really want to be an artist. Right? We get caught up in the shoulds and the reverence that we have that I really should be this way. I should be more flexible. I should be more this, more that. We try to live to that should as opposed to what's true for us. What's true for us. One of the areas that Debbie hit pretty hard in this chapter, it's a pretty short chapter, but in it she talks about self-sabotage. And we've talked about that before. We talk about how we all have this comfort zone that we pretty much live in, move around in just a little bit. When we get outside of that, either much better or much worse, we work very hard to get back within that comfort zone to what's comfortable for us. She calls this our self-sabotaging behavior. And what sorts of choices are we making that are taking us away from our goal or our intention, our chief aim, like we talked about last month in our Miracle Club book? What is that chief aim or that chief goal that we might be working towards right now? What experience are we seeking to have that we don't have in our life right now? Those stated intentions. All 10 of these questions in this book are designed to help us to understand that disconnect between what I say I want and what I'm actually experiencing in my life. Would you agree that there's a disconnect in those two things if I'm not having that experience of that which I say I want in my life? There's a disconnect because that's how the law works. We are limiting our own success in that area by our underlying decisions. Debbie says self-sabotaging is any time that we allow a momentary distraction. Anybody else have those? Squirrel? Allow those momentary distractions to pull us away from our dreams. To pull us away from our dreams. And we do all the time, don't we? I'll just spend a few more minutes on the computer instead of reading this book that I have committed to reading. Or I'll just spend a few more moments, maybe I'll find another show instead of spending time with my family. I'll just sleep in a little bit instead of doing my spiritual practices or going to the gym. Momentary distractions that sideline us from achieving our goals. You ever compared yourself to somebody else? Oh, well, they're so good, so tall, so beautiful, so successful, so, whatever, and I'm not. The comparison thing. The comparison thing. Another clue to self-sabotaging is if we blame. Blame is a real big red flag for us. If we are blaming our blowing our diet because you made me angry. Or I got yelled at by the boss today. I didn't feel like I was treated very well in the office today, so I'm going to go shopping tonight. And I'll buy something to make myself feel better. And it's their fault. Right? The blame, when we're offloading the responsibility to someone else for the choices that we're making in our lives. So look for those triggers. Debbie uses a story in the book that demonstrates the subtleness of how we can sometimes derail ourselves in this process. James was holding a vision, a goal for himself of creating a more intimate relationship with his wife. They'd been married for about 7 years, and he was saying that she was no longer present in their relationship like she had been, and he was blaming her, and he was wanting to create an intimate relationship. That was his goal that he had set with Debbie in his session with her. Okay, great. So one of the exercises she gave him was to ask himself if he could identify, write down a list of the choices that he had made that sabotaged himself and his marriage. So this was forefront on his mind, this list of things that he was beginning to make. Well, his wife had something else to do that evening, so he went to dinner by himself, and he sat down on the outside little cafe and ordered, and as he did, he had a little game that he played, a little hobby that he had, that he would watch other women. And he would watch other women walking by on the street and the wait staff coming by, and he would admire them because he just loved women. He loved looking at women. He thought that was he appreciated the uniqueness and the beauty of them. And in his mind, then, he began to recognize not only was he observing and appreciating, he began to compare. He began to compare them to his wife, even so far as fantasizing about some of them. And it hit him in that moment that was his sabotaging of his relationship. That it was a subtle, innocent habit that he had of doing this. But it was sabotaging his relationship. He did not realize it until Debbie had him write down this list. And after he discovered this, Debbie then asked him another question. She said, make a new list of choices. Make a new list of choices and acts of self-love. Not about the relationship, was it? It wasn't about the external thing. It was about him and making his own choices of self-love that would enrich him and his marriage and lead him to a goal, to the goal that he had set for himself. I want this happy, successful marriage. But in the middle, he was blaming his wife because it wasn't, and he was over here sabotaging it on a very subtle level in his own mind. See the disconnect. See the disconnect. So those are the ways that we disconnect ourselves from that which we say that we want. And this exercise of making that list and having that conscious in our awareness of what am I doing that is sabotaging? Why am I not able to call forward and bring forward this goal that I set for myself in January, or this goal that I'm working on right now? Why is it not coming to me? What is my disconnect? What is my disconnect? And we begin to look at that, this idea of self-discovery, learning who we are, what we're about, what we're doing. It's not always fun. Do you think James was really excited about discovering that about himself? Probably not. Probably not. It was probably a very painful realization for him. But look what he was able to do. He was able to bring it to the light. He was able to heal it and transform it. And to achieve his goal of a successful, happy relationship with his wife. Powerful stuff. Have you ever heard the phrase, arguing for your limitations? Arguing for your limitations. What this means is that we say it's the yeah, buts, isn't it? It's the yeah, but, no. Let's say you want to manifest a new home. You go and you have a session with a practitioner. The practitioner prays with you about manifesting that new home, and you're on board, she's or he's on board, and the universe is going, yes, here comes the house. And then you go to lunch with your friends. And you sit down at lunch with your friends, and they say, what's going on in your life? And you say, well, I'm manifesting a new house. And they go, that's great. How's it going? Well, I've been looking. The market's really hot right now, and I've made a couple of offers, but there's always people making higher offers, and they're above market, and I'm not, and I don't really quite have all of my money together yet for my down payment. And a lot of these people have cash, and the prices are so high, and I can't get in the neighborhood. I'm just not sure it's going to happen. What have we just done? We've completely undermined our prayer, our goal. I want this, but here's what's true. There's a disconnect in the middle, isn't there? And that's arguing for our limitations, that's sabotaging ourselves, even at a spiritual level, from achieving and receiving that which we are stating that we want to experience in our lives. Our founder, Dr. Ernest Holmes, also the author of Science of Mind that we teach from, and many other books, as Diane was saying this morning, he tells us that the road to self-discovery often calls for a clearing away of the underbrush of ignorance, fear, superstition, and any sense of isolation which have made us feel we are unworthy, unhealed, and lost. In the divine providence of good, salvation is not necessary. Nothing to be saved from. We're already whole, perfect, and complete. But self-discovery is essential. Understanding ourselves and how we are holding these underlying thoughts that is keeping that good that we live in from us. Knowing what those disconnected circuits are. Discovering what our true self is. That we are divine love. We are sourced of divine love. That is the power and presence in us, as us, through our lives. Perfect, whole, and complete in this manifestation. Brilliant and beautiful, flawed and foolish. Selfless and self-absorbed. Courageous and fearful. All of it. Beautiful. Self-love means that we cherish every piece of ourselves and appreciate our individuality and uniqueness, according to what Debbie says, and I believe that. Every bit of it. The good, the bad, and the ugly, as they say. I guess, did he say that in the movie? I don't know if he said it in the movie. There's a movie about it. The good, the bad, and the ugly. We all have it. And to love that part of us, appreciate that part of us. That's what makes us unique in the world. By practicing these self-sabotaging behaviors, however, acting from fear and limitation, we deprive ourselves of the desires that we deserve. Because we wouldn't have those desires even in our awareness if we didn't deserve them. Because we all have different desires in this room right now. We all have different desires, and they're individualized and unique through us as the expressions of the divine through each one of us. And that's why you have them. And you're here to express them. And understanding the self, discovering the self, is a way in which we can do that. We can't obtain self-love through a beauty makeover, new clothes, or new boyfriend or girlfriend. Those things might feel good and gratifying, but that's not what self-love is. It's not a feel-good state. According to psychotherapist Joyce Martyr, she says it's a state of appreciation for ourselves that grows from actions that support our physical, psychological, and spiritual growth. We reclaim it. We were all born with it, right? When we were born as little babies, we loved ourselves. We loved everything about ourselves, didn't we? But then we were taught, maybe you're not so dang lovable, right? We were taught that. Now we're spending the rest of our lives trying to unlearn it and reclaim the love that we are. Reclaim the love that we are. Debbie suggests that the actions that we take that build self-love and self-esteem are these little choices we make all day long. Ernest Holmes tells us it's the tendency of our thinking that determines the quality of our lives. The tendency of our thinking. It's not the 15 minutes of concentrated prayer and meditation that you did this morning. It's the 23 hours and 45 minutes of the rest of the day and what you're thinking about and the actions that you take that are creating the life you are living. It's the 23.75 that's important. And it's the tendency of our thinking and making those little choices, loving choices for ourselves all day long. Debbie suggests two simple questions. Two simple questions. At night before you go to bed, make a list of all the things you did today that fed your self-esteem. So tonight, when you go to bed, just make a little list. Or just say it to yourself. All of the things you did today that fed your self-esteem. What you do for you. And then in the morning when you wake up, how am I going to love and honor myself today? How am I going to honor and love myself today? And you can still do that by answering that question for yourself right now. How am I going to love and honor myself today, the rest of this day? How am I going to do that? So the bottom line is that we're learning how to give ourselves the love that we have for so long been seeking outside of ourselves, through whatever form or fashion that may take. Another human being, a substance, a material, an activity, whatever that might be. We're discovering how to be that love within ourselves. And doing that by making choices that support us. And then what we notice is when we do that, we begin to attract to us people, circumstances, and situations that support that. It's like the ripple on the pond once again. So as we turn to our practicing the principles today, I'm going to actually jump to another book. And this book is called The 5 Love Languages by Gary Chapman. Are they familiar with that? Yeah, it's about relationships and speaking to our partners in the language that they believe expresses to them love, a loving situation, a loving act. But psychotherapist Joyce Martyr has taken that list and switched it around and shows us how to use the self-love for ourselves. I thought it was an interesting take. I'm jumping books a little bit. I'm going to show you how this works this morning. The first one is words of affirmation. Now, in Gary's book, he talks about partner praise. Partner praise and kind words. If your partner feels love, that they're loved when you praise them, when they hear words of praise, that is translated as love, then that's what you do in your relationship. You speak that language. Even if it's not yours, you speak in that language because otherwise you're speaking Greek and they can't understand you, right? So you have to speak in their language. And the same is true for ourselves. We speak words of affirmation to ourselves. We speak words of affirmation to ourselves. Let go of the negative thinking, right? Letting go of the negative thinking. Being compassionate with ourselves. Being positive with ourselves. If you prefer writing, you can break out your journal and write about it. You can write about the good things that have happened. Write about the not so good things that have happened and what you gained from that. How did that propel you into a future direction that maybe you wouldn't be going had that not occurred? And appreciate and love yourself in that as well. Ernest Holmes tells us we should look upon every problem as an added possibility. Isn't that a great perspective? Look at every problem as an added possibility, an added opportunity for expression. Number 2, quality time. In the relationship, it's our undivided attention to our partner. It's not multitasking. Yeah, I hear you, right? It's putting down your fork or whatever and actually one-on-one being present with your partner. When was the last time you were present with yourself? Taking the time to be present with ourselves, to do our daily spiritual practices, to go within and to build that relationship with our higher wisdom, our higher self, our relationship with the divine. We also make time for leisure and hobbies, play and enjoyment, spending quality time with ourselves. Don't overschedule ourselves. That's an act of self-love, isn't it? Not overscheduling ourselves. Number 3 is receiving gifts. Gary is very clear in his book that this is not materialistic. It's not about the materialistic aspect of gift giving. It's about the thoughtfulness of the gift giving. It's about the thought behind it, so that the gift that is presented, the person receiving it knows the time and effort and care that was taken in selecting the gift, whatever it might be, large or small or very simple or very elaborate. But knowing that the thoughtfulness behind that. So for us, buying only what we want, really truly that brings us joy, that we really truly love, surrounding ourselves with only things that we love, purging those things that we do not love, that are just taking up space and clutter in our homes, things that don't bring us joy. Give yourself a gift of something on your bucket list, an experience. Imagine how good you would feel when you accomplish that thing, whatever that might be. Number 4, acts of service, easing the burden of responsibility on our partners. Easing the burden of responsibility, whatever that might be. For ourselves, it's taking care of ourselves, isn't it? Taking care of our body temple. Good physical structure and our health, keeping our environment clean and organized, feeding our minds inspirational materials and not the negative or the violent things. Learning something new. Learning something new. And number 5 is physical touch. In Gary's book, it's about actual physical touch of hugs, kisses, and that sorts of thing. And personally, it could be stretching our muscles, doing yoga, getting a massage, things that the body feels that it's being attended to, if you will. Focused breathing, taking hot baths, moisturizing our skin in this dry desert climate that we live in, right? Anything that involves the body. So a return to self-love is a journey, isn't it? It's a journey, but it takes dedication, it takes patience and practice and devotion. Commit to loving yourself every day. Commit to making these subtle changes, these simple choices. Change the tendency of your thinking if it has a tendency to go to the negative. And watch how your experience of life shifts and changes around you and continues to change around you. You continue to call forth and attract to you more of a loving presence. So this week, when you're faced with a choice, ask yourself, would someone who loves themselves make this choice? Would someone who loves themselves make this choice? Is this action an expression of someone who honors and cherishes themselves? And finally, of course, is this an act of self-love, or is it an act of fear? Is this an act of self-love or an act of fear? I want to close today with a special tribute. You know, the talk title was Love Me Tender. Friday the 16th was the 42nd anniversary of Elvis Presley's death, and since he sang and co-wrote that song, he would like to dedicate that to all of us today from the perspective of love yourself tenderly. Good it is to recognize that there is one love that loves so much that it created all that is. It is the power and the presence of the universe. It is that infinite love we call God. It is the source of all that is, was, or ever shall be, and it is the source of each of us. For we are all sourced of that infinite love. We are that love in form, individualized, unique in that expression of it. And so as I know this, I know that each of us, as the love of the divine in form and in expression, has powerful desires, wishes, wants, goals in our hearts. And as we do, and as we bring those to our own awareness now, to the forefront of our minds and our hearts, that we clearly see anything that we may be doing that separates us from that, and allow that to be healed, transformed, and returned to the native nothingness, for it no longer serves us. And we allow that good to come to us, through us, in this moment, as that pure positive energy of the divine, of God, of the source, of the present. And how grateful I am for this knowing, how grateful I am to know the love of self and the love of all of humanity. As I just release this into the activity of law, knowing that it is done and it is so, and we affirm together, and so it is.